The thing that I attribute to my success, at least getting started, was I decided to treat my real estate job as if it were a 9 to 5. And I don't mean that at 5 o'clock I'm punching out and you can't reach me. But what I mean by that is, like, if it's Monday morning and it's 9 a.m., I'm working. I may not be showing a house, and I'm probably not. I'm probably not showing a house Monday at 9 a.m. I'm probably not at a listing appointment. I'm probably not at a social event. I'm at my office desk planning my week, and I'm there every morning at 9 a.m.
Well, guys, thank you for stopping in and watching this episode today. Here today, we got Will Campbell. We're looking forward to chatting with him. So he's a real estate agent for Royal LePage, is it?
Yep.
So we're looking forward to chatting with him and learning a little bit more about him and his industry, as it's a very hot topic right now. So I'm sure we're all going to be able to learn lots. To start off, Will, I just kind of want to learn a little bit about yourself. If you kind of got
Sure.
a little snippet there just to give us an
Yeah,
intro, that'd be awesome.
yeah, definitely. So my name is Will Campbell, born and raised in Dartmouth. So I know the local area very well. I'm 29 years old. I've been selling real estate in the Halifax area for just over 9 years. So got into it really young. I think I was actually 19 when I enrolled in the course. I would have been 20 years old by the time I was licensed, but started out in 2013 and kind of haven't looked back. Grew up in Cole Harbour, went to Cole Harbour High, graduated from Cole Harbour High, went to St. Mary's after Cole Harbour High, and my plan at the time was to pursue a teaching career. So I wanted to be a science teacher, and after my first semester, I think at St. Mary's, I was like, you know what, this isn't quite what I had in mind, and I could see the path now towards this career, and I don't think it's necessarily something that I want to take. So I decided to take a year off and start working just to save up some money. And when I did that, I quickly found out that I guess my natural skill set was geared more towards sales. So for me to be in a classroom teaching kids, as much as that would have been something that I would have enjoyed doing, my natural skill set was more catered more towards sales. So I knew pretty quickly. I knew by the time I was about like 20 that I needed to do something in sales, and I knew it wasn't retail sales. I wasn't going to do retail sales for my life. It just, the lifestyle that I had imagined for myself, I wasn't going to be able to do it by being the sales supervisor at Best Buy. So I knew I had to do something else, and in my head, my mindset went towards, well, I'm either going to sell insurance, which nobody wants to buy or sell. It's just a reality that you don't want it. It's something that you need, but you don't want it. I could sell cars, but I just never really envisioned myself as kind of the car salesman type. I knew that wasn't going to be for me. So then my next thing was, well, real estate. And at the time, I had no clue. I had no clue about houses. I had no clue about the real estate transaction and what actually happens and what each person's role is in the transaction. And I had no idea about the market. So I kind of just got into it. I got into it during a time where people were handing in their licenses and giving up. And I didn't even know that. I remember I got my license and I was super happy about it. And everybody was like, oh, like, good luck. And like with a little bit of a condescending tone, I'd be like, well, what do you mean? And they're like, well, houses aren't selling right now and real estate agents are struggling. And I was like, well, that's news to me. So I appreciate the good luck because I'm going to need it.
Right.
But yeah, I got into it and I haven't looked back since. And, I can honestly say that, I'm 29 now, barring something crazy and unexpected happening to me, I will probably sell real estate in Halifax for the next 20 years at least. So
Right.
I know the market well, and this is very much a career for me, not a job.
Right. And you
Yeah.
said that you felt like sales was kind of the way you wanted to go. Did you have any sort of background in sales before this, or was it just kind of like an inkling that you had?
Yeah. So when I stopped when I gave up St. Mary's and decided that I was going to work and save up money, I started working at Best Buy, and I laugh at it to this day because it's like everybody had a Best Buy job. That
Yeah.
they worked when they were younger. But I look back and I worked just over 2 years at Best Buy, and the things that I learned about sales and about people just from those 2.5 years were super, super, super valuable. I wouldn't trade it for anything. So it was there at Best Buy that I kind of realized my potential in sales, and knew that it was something that I enjoyed. And it also
Yeah.
gave an awkward 19-year-old a little bit of experience dealing face to face with people, right? Like
Yeah.
I got to come in, you're coming into this store, I don't know who you are, right? So I got to somehow introduce myself without seeming pushy, try and build a rapport with you so that you can trust the advice I'm going to give you and then help facilitate a sale. And that literally is what real estate is. And then add in the fact that eventually I started in cell phones. So that was what I sold at Best Buy. And during a time where everybody was transitioning from a flip phone $25 a month bill to a iPhone 4 at the time with a $60, $70 a month bill. So explaining and going over contracts became a part of my job. And that directly translated to real estate as well. So it was like what I learned in my 2 to 2.5 years at Best Buy kind of pushed me towards realizing that sales and real estate might be a good option for me in the future.
That's really cool,
Yeah.
man. Like, I feel like we had a really similar start to our sales career because I actually worked at Future Shop
Yeah.
back when I was 16 before it was Best Buy, and then from there I moved into cell phones from the Bell Line store, I guess is what I'll call it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it definitely was a huge growing experience, I think, for me too, and that's where I started as well in sales
Yeah.
and kind of how I fell in love with it. So I think that's interesting. It's not the you're not the first person that's told me that. So like yeah,
And
like you
the
said,
flip
it's
side is a
great.
lot of people get into it. They get into a job like that, Best Buy, Future Shop, or working at another cell phone carrier, and they'll realize quickly that it's not for them,
Yeah.
right? So it's like it's good. It's exposure. You're out in the public, and you're gonna find out. You're gonna find out whether you're cut out for that type of job or not, because it's not easy. The thing about sales jobs is there's always pressure. There will never not be pressure to sell. So you got to kind of like the pressure. And if
Yeah.
you're somebody who doesn't, which is fine, not everybody's geared that way. You'll realize quickly that it's just you're better off in a different industry where you can be more valuable to other people.
So yeah, so like speaking of the pressure that you kind of mentioned, like how did you get started in real estate? Like how did you find your clients when you first got going? And what have you changed from then to now and how you're kind of gathering bigger clientele right now?
Yeah, so okay, so I started at Exit Metro in 2013, and I worked 2 years independent there. And what I mean by independent, it was just me trying to figure it out. And I did it part time. I was working at Glentel, so similar to like the Bell shop. I was working at T Booth in Micmac Mall selling cell phones full time. I was working about 32 hours a week, and I was doing real estate on the side, just trying to get it going. And it wasn't. It probably took me about 2 years to realize that that wasn't going to work. Um, I might be. I sure I could make some money selling real estate while working full time, but if I wanted to grow a business, I just wasn't going to be able to do it if I was spending such a significant amount of time doing something else. Um, so it wasn't until I was about 2 years into the business that I really realized what I had to do. And the thing that I attribute to my success, at least getting started, was I decided to treat my real estate job as if it were a 9 to 5. And I don't mean that at 5 o'clock I'm punching out and you can't reach me. But what I mean by that is like if it's Monday morning and it's 9 a.m., I'm working. I may not be showing a house, and I'm probably not. I'm probably not showing a house Monday at 9 a.m. I'm probably not at a listing appointment. I'm probably not at a social event. I'm at my office desk planning my week, and I'm there every morning at 9 a.m., regardless of whether I have a house to sell, an offer to write, or a house to list. It, I'm there working because about 80% of my job is not active appointments. It's business development and trying to grow and develop the business. So that was the
Gotcha.
key thing for me. Was I realized when I was about I would have been about 24, and I realized through the help of a mentor, I had somebody kind of mentoring me at the time who basically just helped me realize that it was never going to be what I wanted it to be unless I made it what I wanted it to be. And it was scary. Like what I ended up doing was I ended up leaving that job at Glentel, and I ended up getting a job where I bartended on Saturday nights and Sunday nights. And then I did that for a year, and I got to a point where I no longer needed that income from the bartending job, but I still kind of enjoyed the job and enjoyed having the extra money. But then even then I had the realization that like it's another safety net that I put in place that I don't really need. And it's not helping me, it's hurting me. It's preventing me from really diving into this and making it my livelihood. Because now I'm at the point, and I mean I've been a full-time agent for 6 years now. I'm now at the point now where like if I don't sell houses, I don't make money. Like there's no other than my personal investments and income properties and things like that I own. There's nothing else that's gonna bring in revenue. So I have to treat it like a full-time job. And that's a
Right.
question I get asked a lot by people that are curious or interested in getting into the business is, can I do this part-time? And my answer to that is you can sell real estate part-time, but you cannot build a business part-time. So if you have these pre-established relationships that you have with people that you know will just buy houses with you because they know you and like you and trust you, then great, you can probably make it work part-time. But if you're going to get into this and you're going to try and build a book of business and you're going to try and grow a clientele, you can't do it part-time. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm sure anything is possible, but statistically speaking, if I look at like the success rate of new agents, the ones that do it part-time, their success rate is, I don't know the exact number, but it's definitely less than half of that of the person that tries and goes at it full-time.
Right.
But full-time's scary, right? Because then you have no safety net.
Yeah,
So
it's all or nothing.
it's exactly, it's tough. But it was that realization that I needed it to be all or nothing, in order for me to really go after it and make it work.
That's
Okay.
that's huge. I was going to ask where you got that from, Will, and I think I remember early in my days, and you alluded to some of the industries that are difficult, and Nathan and I in our full time industry, it's yeah, it's a grind for sure. And
Definitely.
I met with my mentor early on, and I said to him, I was kind of like where you were at. I was like, man, I'm not making anything. Like I see the potential in this business. I'm not going anywhere, but I
Right.
got to eat something. Like these, $2 steaks aren't
Right.
kicking it.
Yeah.
And and he just told me like go all in. Like
Yeah.
either that or go get a real job. That's what he
Yeah.
always told me, and that's like cemented
Yeah.
in my head. Like go get a
Yeah.
real job if you're not going to dig into it.
Yeah.
Very sound advice for sure. Definitely
Yeah.
in any sales career, but I'm sure yours as much as
Definitely.
our full
And
time job
yeah,
too.
and I'm sure there, when you did that, there was a bit of fear. You know what I mean? But
Absolutely,
sometimes fear chasing you can help push you down the road you need to go down, right?
you got it.
If you got nothing bad chasing you, then you're going to be a little bit more reluctant to move, right?
Yeah,
So
and you
the
get
fear
comfortable,
can be
right?
exactly.
It's like there's in our industry, in the insurance industry, there's some folks who will be an employee, and they'll want to. The first question they're asking you is, "What is my salary going to be?" or "What's my base?"
Yeah.
And for me, I'm like, nothing, man. If you're in it, you got to go in it. Maybe there's
Yeah.
some sort of draw structure or whatever it might be so you can float. But ultimately, you really got to believe in this and think
Yeah.
like an entrepreneur and not as an employee. And if you want to be an employee, then there's lots of good places that will hire you. But yeah, that's a big piece to learn and
Absolutely.
remember.
And even like a prime example is so my sister is currently like my administrator, right? So
Okay.
she often gets asked by other realtors, when's she going to get her license, or is she going to get licensed? And her answer is probably not. Like, so sure, something might change down the road. She might eventually decide to get her license, but as of right now, the desire is not there, and it's because she makes enough money in her current position to be able to afford her lifestyle the way that she wants to live it. And part of that lifestyle is to be able to have a set schedule and have evenings off and have your weekends off and not have to worry about that. Whereas for me, I'm geared a little bit more different, where I'm willing to sacrifice those things for a higher income. But not everybody wants that. And I'm not saying, I'm not trying to say it as a bad thing. It's not. The important thing is that you know what you want, right? Instead of chasing something that you don't actually want because somebody told you that it was good for you. So for her, it's great, right? There's no desire to really take on that self-employed entrepreneurial uh, position because she gets what she wants out of her job right now. right?
You get it.
So, yeah,
Not everyone's cut out for it, and that's
no,
fine.
yeah,
That's okay.
absolutely, it is okay
You
for
get it.
sure. Yeah,
To switch gears a little bit and think more about, or I guess just chat a bit more about the market itself. Like Nathan and I'm not a real estate expert. I own a home. That's about all I know. Um,
well, then you're an
but what I
expert.
do see, yeah, yeah, right. What I do see is, there's this, migration of folks coming back home from Ontario or out west during COVID for a number of reasons. And,
Yeah,
I'm realizing my property is like doubled in value according to whatever in the past few years, making me think
yeah,
I probably should have bought a bigger home when I had the chance.
yeah.
But regardless, what's the market look like here in Halifax and Nova Scotia or Atlantic Canada? Do you want to speak on that for a bit? Like, what's
Yeah.
going on?
Yeah, so it really started to change like spring, summer of 2019. Like that's when we were noticeably seeing. Well, let me explain one thing before I kind of dissect this because it's important to understand. We use the term buyer's market and seller's market a lot, and people don't fully understand what that means. All that they think is that a seller's market is a market that favors a seller, and a buyer's market is a market that favors a buyer. But there's an actual formula for determining what is a buyer's market, what is a balanced market, and what is a seller's market. And the way that we do that is by calculating what we call months of inventory. So, months of inventory is a statistic that we look at that measures the current active listings that we have for sale, and we compare that to the pace of sales, meaning this week, how many houses sold. So, based off how many houses sold this week, if no other agent were to list another house, it would take X amount of months to sell everything that's currently for sale for it to zero. Obviously, that's kind of a theoretical number because there are certain houses out there that just would never sell, even if they were the only house on the market. But that's theoretical. So a balanced market is somewhere between 4 and 6 months of inventory, meaning that if no agent were to list another house, it would take 4 to 6 months to sell everything. Anything greater than 6 is a buyer's market, and anything lower than 4 is a seller's market. So for the first 6 years that I sold real estate, we were in a heavy, heavy buyer's market. We had anywhere from about 10 to 12 months of inventory, which is an extreme buyer's market. It's actually a borderline recession. So what it means is that the buyer has all the negotiating power. They want to buy a house. They've got 50 to pick from. Why should I buy yours? Right. So that's kind of the process. Now, in 2019, we started to shift towards a more balanced market, which is great. That's what I would love to see. I would love to see 3 to 4 months of inventory personally, and I'll explain why a little later. But then what happened was, as we were moving closer to a balanced market, COVID hit. And I think, and this is me speculating, but I think what COVID did for a lot of people was force them to change the way that they see their house because they were spending so much time in it. So many people had to transition to a home office, which means they needed more space. A lot of people seen the downside of having a gym membership, because you're at the mercy of the gym's hours and all these protocols and things like that. So I'm going to invest in a home gym. So the use of people's homes increased. And also, if you add in like an interprovincial thing, a lot of people realized that they didn't have to be in that expensive city to work for that company that operates out of that expensive city. So they moved, and what it did was, instead of moving slowly towards a balanced market, we just went straight into a seller's market, and it hasn't slowed down. It hasn't slowed down at all, and we're currently at about zero point 0.3 months of inventory, meaning that if no other agent were to list a house, and keep in mind, 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, we were at 10 months of inventory. So 10 months to sell everything. We're now at a point where if no other agent were to list a house, everything would be gone in a week and a half. So it's a problem. It's not, anyone who says that it's a good thing is not looking at the complete picture. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's something that needs to be watched very closely. But anyways, this months of inventory thing. We're in an extreme seller's market. We have very low inventory. And because of that, the price has escalated drastically, and it's going to continue to do it until something happens. Hopefully, interest rate increases. But it's going to the houses are going to continue to increase. There are currently 100. Well, I checked yesterday, so there were some new listings today, so this might be an outdated stat. But as of yesterday, there were currently 152 single-family homes listed in HRM, and HRM is a pretty big area. Like it goes out to Musquodoboit, out almost as far as Mount Uniacke on the west side. Upper Tantallon, Glen Haven. Like it's a large geographical area. So for there to only be 152 homes for sale in the entire area is not a good thing. It's making it extremely difficult for buyers. I wrote 9 offers last week. I have had 1 accepted, and almost all of these offers were at least 60 or 70,000 above the asking price that were not accepted. So we're seeing now, and this is different from what it was in December. It's changed drastically, even more so in January. We're seeing now houses getting listed that are receiving 40 plus offers on them within the first 48 to 72 hours.
Wow.
So it's good if you're a seller exiting the market, right? If you're a baby boomer and you've held on to your house for this long and you're now ready to sell and go into a rental, great, you picked the best time. Now, if you're looking to enter the market, it's going to be tough. And if you're looking to make a transition, you're either upgrading, downgrading, or making a lateral move, it's also going to be very tough. So this isn't good. This isn't a good thing for everybody because it makes the entire market challenging for everybody. There's only one group of person that benefits from a market being in this state, and it's somebody looking to exit the market. That they are the only person that this is perfect for. Yeah. And what happens when price goes up this quickly in such a short period of time is people are forced to make moves that they had planned much longer for. So there were a lot of people that in 2017, 2018, I sold them into a semi-detached home for 180 grand. And their plan was to live in that house for 5 to 10 years, pay it down, let it grow, and then sell that house and buy a detached home for 300 grand in 7 years. But what this market did was they seen the cost of the detached home climbing, and they said, well, shit, like if we don't make a move right now, we're not going to be able to afford that detached home in 5 years. Right? So that meant more semis coming up for sale and basically more people out there actively selling and buying because they're almost forced to. Basically, I just touched on like there's a hierarchy of houses, right? So like there's a detached home is better than a semi-detached home. It just is. There's no person out there that would rather have a semi than a detached, right? Now, obviously, there's a difference in value. So obviously some people might prefer a semi for a lower price because they don't have a huge perceive a huge value in detached. But there's a natural hierarchy. It goes detached, semi-detached, mini home. Now you could throw condo in there somewhere, but condo, that's like comparing apples to oranges. Like condos almost a complete class of its own. So what's happening is, let's say you got an approval 2 years ago for $350,000, which was a healthy approval 2 years ago. And you were looking at a detached home. It was very doable. But let's just say that you were one of those people that said, well, the market's hot right now. I want to wait till the spring, till there's more listings. I'm going to wait. I'm going to put my house hunt on pause for 6 months. I'm going to pick it back up in the spring. What happened over those 6 months is home prices shot up about 20%. So now you used to have a budget of $350 for a detached home, and unfortunately, you can't get a detached home for $350 anymore. So you're forced down the hierarchy. So now you move down a notch, and you and many other people. You're not the only one. So what that does is increases the buyer pool in that particular pocket of houses, the semi-detached, which increases the demand, which increases the price. So what happens is the detached homes went up, but then because everybody was shot down a tier, semis go up with them.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
So we monitor the difference in price between these two classes. Now in 2018 it was about 48%. Now it's about 42%, but it's still like that change is fairly insignificant. So it's
Yeah.
still very much in line, which means that yes, homes are appreciating, but detached homes are appreciating at basically the same rate as a semi-detached. The same is
Okay.
not true for semi-detached to mini home. So mini home is the next step down. So what's happening now, or what's about to happen, and we're seeing it happen this month, is $350,000 is going to be tough for you to find a semi now. So what's going to happen is the entry point to the market for a freehold property is above 350. So if you're only approved for 350, then unfortunately you only have one or two options: condo, mini home. So you're either going to say, no, I'm not interested in being a homeowner anymore and I'm going to rent for the rest of my life, or you're going to suck it up and you're going to buy a mini. Now, the difference in price between a condo and a mini home, or sorry, between a semi-detached and a mini home, is greater than the difference in price between any two classes of property. So what that means is that mini homes have a potential to grow in value more than any other class of property. And then if you also look at the last 2 years stats, there hasn't been a class of property other that has grown at a faster rate than mini homes have. Mini homes went up 43% last year,
Right.
right? So there's no other class of property that has gone up over 40%.
So
So
you're thinking hypothetically, many homes have the highest chance right now to catch up to those semi-detached.
exactly.
Okay.
Now there
So
is something that you do need to keep in mind, which is you have a lot fee, right?
yeah.
So the lot fees are, depending on the park you're in, are somewhere around $300 a month typically.
Yeah.
That needs to be factored into the equation, because $300 a month is a lot of money if you translate it into a mortgage payment, right? So they'll never get to a 40% difference in price. They're not going to catch up quite as close as a semi is to a detached, but
Right.
they will climb, and that gap will shrink, and it's shrinking every year. It shrunk in 2019, it shrunk in 2020, and it shrunk in 2021, and it will shrink again in 2022. So,
Right. And what's the
and it's,
situation right now? Sorry, go ahead.
no, I was going to say, and you see it like a mini home 4 years ago, like a decent mini home was 80 to $100,000.
Yeah,
They're 200,000 now,
easily. Yeah.
easily, right?
And
250 in some cases. So
so what I was going to ask is what's the situation of buying I guess income properties right now? So if somebody was looking to pay, obviously the rent's gone up for most places. So is the increasing pricing of the house, is it paying off when you can charge more on rent, or how is that looking right now?
So real estate and investment from like a rental perspective is becoming less and less attractive by the day. And I think that that might be a good thing, because it might get some of the investors out of this pool and allow some homeowners to actually acquire some of these properties. But the reason for it is a lot of current policy that our municipality has in effect. The main one is the rent control. No more than a 2% rent increase per year. It's not helping anyone, and it's creating a big headache for investors, forcing them to reconsider their investment and maybe look at investing their money somewhere else. And the example I give is, let's say you bought a house 4 years ago. You bought it for 250 grand, and you rented it out for $1,000 a month plus utilities, right? Fast forward to today's date, that $250,000 property is probably worth about 400 or 450,000, meaning that you have $200,000 plus in equity in that home, that you only have two avenues, or sorry, I should say three. You only have three avenues to be able to access that money. One is to sell it, the other is to refinance it, and the third, which is the most common one and our only saving grace right now, is a home equity line of credit. So selling it's bad, not necessarily for you, but in general. So selling it's bad because you're cashing out on your investment. You're not going to cash in on any other growth. I'm expecting we're going to go up at least 12% in value this year. So you're cashing out, you're not going to get any of that. But you get to access the cash that you have in it. And what's likely going to happen is your tenant that you have in there at $1,000 a month is going to get booted out,
Yeah.
because it's unlikely that another investor buys it. It's going to be somebody looking to live in the house, and what they're going to do is they're going to buy it and they're going to serve you a 2 month notice to quit for personal possession. And then you're going to get removed as a tenant. You're going to be removed from the property, and you're going to be stuck trying to find another rental And what also just happened is one less rental is available now because that's now not even in the rental market. It's now an owner occupied property. Um, and people can't refi. So the option two is refi. If you refi, your mortgage payment is going to increase significantly because you're taking out a loan on a larger amount of money, and you can't increase the rent to offset that. So let's say you were running relatively skinny, you're making maybe $100 a month in rental income at the end of the day. Now that you've refied, your rental payments up here and your cash flow is down here. So now you're running at a negative and you have no way to increase it because 2%, what's 2% on $1,000?
Right.
20
Not very
bucks,
much.
right? Like what's that doing? Nothing,
Yeah.
right? And utilities are increasing more than 2% a year. So you're not even maintaining. You're running at more and more of a negative each year. So when investors hear that and when they see that, especially when they see that they have a bunch of money in their account or in their home that they can't access, they're going to say, well, I want it. I want it. I want to access it now. I don't want to deal with the headache of being a landlord. I don't want to deal with these new policies that are coming out regarding rent control. And I might think that we're at kind of the high end ceiling of where this market's going to go. So I'm going to cash out on my investment now and take that money and put it somewhere else. And the only person that gets hurt in that situation is the tenant. Because
Right.
now instead of saying, hey, I want to increase your rent from 1,000 to 1,300, and then you say, no, sorry, I can't do that. And then you say, okay, sorry, well, I'm going to have to put somebody else in here. Now it's just, here's your 2 months. See you later. There's not even a negotiation that can happen over a rental increase. So the tenant doesn't even have the option in most cases to agree to an increase in rent. Maybe they're willing to pay that money to stay there. But with this current situation and the way things are, the odds are is that they're just going to be served a 2 month notice to quit by the new owner.
Right.
It's very unfortunate. The current trends in the market are going to affect tenants more so than anybody, any other class of homeowner or somebody in the real estate market right now. Tenants are going to be the ones disparaged, and
Okay.
it's the unfortunate thing is one of the main things that's causing it is something that was put into effect to protect them. So that policy of 2% rent increase cap, in my opinion, at least, I'm sure there's people that disagree with me, was put in place to protect the tenant, but at the end of the day, it's going to hurt them much more than it protects them.
Interesting. Yeah, it's definitely a weird market right now. It's
Yeah.
not great to be renting, but at the same
No.
time, it's not great to be looking to buy. It's
Yeah.
yeah.
True. Yeah.
What about like
In a dream world, we'd have 3 months of inventory for me. It'd be
Yeah.
balanced, and it would allow people to properly negotiate with one another and come to a fair agreement on what they're willing to pay for it, instead of having all these unnecessary pressures added to them.
Okay.
Will, do you see it as a bit of a risk for some of those who might have got intrigued by the real estate market to get into rentals? Maybe they have less than five properties, say for example, and they're running into this rate increase thing. They've
Yeah.
borrowed cheap money for the past 5 or 10 years, and now all of a sudden interest rates are soon to rise or on their way. How does that
Yep.
impact those people? Do you think they should be concerned perhaps of their own personal financial situation and all these homes that they have, maybe leveraged a little too far?
Right.
Or because of the increase in equity and the ability to sell it, it's not much of a problem? What do you think about that?
Well, you definitely can over leverage yourself, right? Like, and you made a good point about money being really cheap right now. Like, I have clients that are doing that and they're trying their best to do a 5% down payment on everything. And I'm just like, I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but it's risky. Because like you said, interest rates will go up. They will. I don't know when. I'm hoping sooner rather than later, but they will go up. And I don't think people fully understand what impact that plays on the real estate market and on your personal finance. It's much larger than what people think, and I don't know if it's because when we talk about interest rates, we're talking about such a low percentage that people don't fully understand it. But like we're talking about a low percentage on a $500,000 investment. It's still a significant amount of money. So I don't think people fully understand what an increase in interest rates will do to them. The only saving grace we have is that I think it was in 2017 or 2018 they introduced the stress test, right, for mortgages, where you might get 1.6, 1.8 on your mortgage, but they're qualifying you on 4 point whatever. So theoretically, you should be able to afford it. But if you're looking at it from an investment standpoint, it just becomes that less enticing of an investment. And when the temptation is there to sell it, when you got people literally knocking on your door, asking you to sell the property for way more than you probably ever could have imagined, it's tempting. And like I said, what will happen is they probably will sell them this year. They probably will sell them, which is great for the housing market because we need the inventory. But it's going to come at the expense. It's going to come at the expense of renters.
Well, that's enlightening for sure. I don't know how positive it is, but it is the truth, and
Yeah.
we appreciate your honesty and your view on it. I know
Yeah.
it's definitely been in the media quite a bit lately about how that's impacting renters for sure. So nice to
Yeah.
have a professional's view on it. Maybe to switch gears
Definitely.
a little bit, you just launched a company, I think, right? Or
Yeah.
what's your
Yeah.
structure look like under Royal LePage? Again, we're not too
Sure.
familiar with the industry, so why don't you tell us
No.
about
And
the new
tons of
brand, I
people
guess
have
we'll call
this.
it.
Yeah. Tons of people have this question because it's not quite clear. And the real estate industry in general is kind of like the Wild West. I mean, we do have a governing body, the Real Estate Commission, that makes sure that we're doing things to, we're being ethical, essentially. But everybody does things differently. There's teams, there's individual agents, there's partnerships, there's all kinds of different things. There's big brokerage, small brokerage, you name it, right? So Royal LePage, which is the brokerage that I work for, they're the largest brokerage east of Montreal, right? They have over 250 agents, I think, at this point now. They're a very large machine, and they're in Halifax, they're in Dartmouth, they're in New Glasgow, they're in Digby, they're in Annapolis Valley, right? They're in New Brunswick. They're all over the place. So they're quite a large machine. Now, in Royal LePage, they have individual agents, right? So as a salesperson, so when I took the course, I took the salesperson's licensing course. I am not a real estate broker. I don't have a broker license, nor do about 95% of the salespeople out there. So I have to work under the rules and regulations set up by the Real Estate Commission. I have to work under a broker license. So I could either go and get my own, which I'm qualified to get now. I just have to take a course and write an exam. I could either go get my own and start my own brokerage, or I can go and work under a broker. And that's what 99% of agents do is they go and they have a relationship with a broker, in this case, Royal LePage, and they say, I want to work for you. So Royal LePage is going to take on responsibility for the deals and transactions that I do. And as a result, I'm going to be allowed to work basically I'm allowed to broker sales under their supervision. That's essentially how it works. So I we got to the point, and it's become a thing where this industry has evolved so much that it's really, really, really difficult to do it on your own. Like, it's the jack of all trades, master of none thing is so prevalent in real estate. Like, you can try and do everything, your own accounting, your own tax filing, build your business, manage a database, do marketing, do advertising. You can try and do everything yourself, but you're only going to be able to do so much, right? And what I realized was that I need to, if I'm at a point now, like, I sell about a house a week on average, roughly. And I'm at the point now where if I want to sell more than that, I have to work more. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't have any interest in working any more than I currently do. Like, I work a lot, and I'm not looking at adding. I don't want to add another 10 hours on to my week every week. Now, if I did, would I make more money? Yeah, 100% I would. But that's not a long-term solution. I'm not trying to work myself into an early grave, right? So what I realize is that I have to invest in people. I have value that I can bring to other salespeople in the way of systems and proven methods of building and generating a business. So what I need to do is I need to focus a certain percentage of my time. I mean, I'm still very heavily focused on sales, but I need to designate a certain percentage of my time to invest in the growth and development of other people, so that they can go out and reach their database and their people that they know and sell real estate to people that they know, and make a passive income off of that. And then that way it'll free up more time for me to do things that I'm better at. So like I like to consider myself, I'm really good at lead generation and follow up. Like I would say that that's kind of where I excel. I'm not, if you register on one of my websites trying to get information on something, I'm going to follow up with you until you tell me to frick off, right? Like that's what's going to happen. You're going to hear from me regularly until you either tell me that you're not interested in hearing from me or you blow up at me. And I'm not going to bother you. I'm not going to be super like generic. You're not going to get scripts from me and stuff like that. Like I'm going to actually try and talk to you. And that's what I'm good at. So the way I had kind of a revelation where I realized that by me going out and showing these houses, it's taking me away from doing something that I'm really good at. So I personally need to spend more time in front of a computer talking to other agents, growing and developing my business and their business than I do need to spend time out showing houses and going on listing appointments and things like that. And I guess what it is it's a way to live a good retirement, I guess, down the road, right? Like I don't want to have to be actively working every year for the rest of my life in order to have income. I want to transition as much of it that I have right now into passive sources. And the best way, in my opinion, to do that is to invest in other people. Right? I can try and find a way to automate my business, but it's not going to have the same effect as if I just train and develop good people to go out and do what I do.
Right.
Yeah.
And you might have already touched on it there a little bit. I'm just kind of curious, what do you do differently? So I know you said you're really good at lead generation and follow up, and you said that Royal LePage alone has however many 250 brokers or salespeople across
Yeah.
just east of Montreal.
Yeah.
So it's obviously a really saturated market with real estate agents right now.
Yeah.
What do you do
Over
different?
1,400 in Halifax.
Yeah, that's crazy. And
Yeah.
so out of those 1,400, obviously you need to stand out. So
Yeah.
what do you do differently than the rest of them to stand out?
Well, one thing I tell all of the agents that I mentor at least is, first of all, you need to outwork them, which is the easiest of everything to do, right? Like just show up, right? Like just show up and you'll automatically be better than 90%, right? So
Yeah.
like, and that kind of ties back into what I said when I decided that I was just going to treat it like a 9 to 5. I wasn't going to show up to the office because I had something to do. I was going to show up to the office and find something to do. Right. And like that was the huge thing to make sure that I didn't fall behind. Now, granted, I will say, like, a lot of people look at me and they say, oh, 9 years in the business, top 3% in the marketplace, like killing it. It wasn't easy. And there was a time where I literally was probably about 2 weeks away from handing in my license. And it was shortly after I quit my bartending job. And I remember my mom, like first of all, my mom was the one who paid for my license or for me to go to the course. So she supported me, but she paid for it and then told me not to do it. She told me that I was too young, and that it just wasn't a great thing for me. And she actually, and I know she regrets this. I love my mom. I'm not trying to rip on my mom, and she's very supportive. But she referred to it as a get rich quick scheme. And that to me was what I needed in order to make it work. I had so many people tell me I was too young, and yeah, sure, I faced hurdles that most real estate agents don't face because they're unique to my age. But boy, am I glad I got into it when I was young, because now we're seeing a boom. And guess what? I have an established business. I'm not trying to grow something during the boom. I got my feet in here, and I'm qualified to help people out while we're experiencing a boom.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty young for this business myself, so it's kind of nice to hear some encouraging words of somebody that obviously experienced hard times, kind of got those objections because you're young, but I see the future even in the next 5-10 years, and kind of maturing in the industry. It's going to be rewarding.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's worth the work in your 20s, man, for sure.
It is. And it's
I'm a
not
couple of
easy.
years older than you, Will, and
Yeah.
you grind it, and you learn a lot. But it's
100%.
amazing that we're still babies in our industry. You know what I mean? I am in
Yeah.
mine. I don't know about you, but there's still the old dogs who are like, wow, and it's
Yeah. Well,
It's
the
pretty
the
cool.
funny thing enough, and I get this a lot. I get this a lot. I mean, you don't have to talk to me for much more than 5 minutes to realize that you might be off. But I get a lot of people that assume that because I'm young, that I'm new, right? So they look at me and they say, okay, well, he's less than 30 years old, so he must only be doing this for 3 or 4 years at the most. And then when they find out that I've been doing it for almost a decade, they're like, oh, really? Like, I never would have thought. And it's like sometimes people look at me and see an experience, even though that's not the case. But I'm confident enough in my ability and how I carry and present myself that all you got to do is talk to me for 30 seconds and you'll know that this isn't new. This isn't new to me, and it's not a hobby. Like, this is a career for me. I'm not somebody trying to make real estate work for me. I like to consider myself, I've already had quite a bit of success in this business. I'm just getting started, but I don't feel like I need to prove myself to anybody. If you talk to me for 5 minutes and you leave that conversation not wanting to pursue any type of real estate relationship with me because you're not confident in my ability, then we're never meant to work together. So it's not, and that confidence does help, right? I was actually talking to a new agent that I mentor, and he was talking about like going on a listing appointment, and we were talking about how like I was 21 or 22 years old. I used to pull into the driveway or in front of the house, and I used to sit there like deep breaths, practice what you're going to say, like what questions are they going to have, and I better make sure I have an answer for them. And now it's just like I roll up, I pull up in the driveway, I hop out of the car, and I knock on the door, and it's like, hey, how are you? There's no question you can ask me that's going to throw me off. I'm not saying I know the answer to everything because I don't, but there's no question you're going to be able to answer me that's going to make me so like nervous or show you that I'm not confident or don't know how to find out answers, right? So I mean, just getting into it and doing the grind like that, you will develop a level of confidence in yourself, and people feel it. People feel it. They do.
Okay. Now, I know in our industry there's kind of a massive shift, and Nick's kind of mentioned this before too. Just like the fact that a lot of people are a lot older than us, and it seems like a lot of the older people are getting out of the industry now. Is that
Mm-hmm.
something that's similar in the real estate world, or there's still like a kind of like an older generation that's still running it? And what's the opportunity for us young guys?
Tons of opportunity in real estate for youth, for sure. I even love seeing like even now that I'm in my late 20s, almost 30. Like I'm starting to see agents come on now, 24, 25 years old. And I think it's great. I think the sky's the limit. And a lot of these people are a lot hungrier than the 45-year-old agent that's just getting started. Now, what I'll say is there's still plenty of room for people that are 50 years plus. The average agent in Nova Scotia is 52 years old. So it's not necessarily a young industry, even though it might appear that way depending on where you go for your information, right? So, and it's different, right? The 50 or 55-year-old agent, probably isn't going to be big on Instagram, right? It's not going
Yeah.
to be where they focus a lot of their time and talk to a lot of the people they know. So they're going to run their business a lot different than somebody who's 25 will. But there's the good thing and the beautiful thing about real estate is there's no right or wrong way to do it, right? Like you do it the way you want to do it. There's tons of agents, I won't name any names, but there's tons of agents out there that I look at and I'm like, how did someone pick you to list their house? I don't get it. But what I've come to realize over the years is that the person that's working with them is a different person than the person that would work with me. They hold value in different areas, and they seen the value that they needed to see in that specific agent, whereas I would never see it. And that's fine. There's no right or wrong way, and there's no like any type of personality can make it work in real estate. Some people think you have to be extroverted. No, I am very much an introvert. Very, very, very much. I don't like socialization is not a strong suit of mine. I can talk to people, but socialization and that is not a strong suit of mine. And a lot of people will tell you that yes, it's a relationship business, but you don't need to be extroverted to develop and grow relationships with people. You don't. And people that are introverted don't typically like working with people that are extroverted, right? So there's an avenue for you to succeed no matter what your personality is. But
Right.
just know that not every personality is going to jive well with you.
Okay. That's interesting. And I know we got to wrap it up here soon. We got a couple
Sure.
minutes left, but I got a few more questions, and I'm sure Nick does too. Now, we kind of just touched on it before about how you said there's 1,400 real estate agents in Nova Scotia alone, right?
Yeah.
Do you think it's super saturated? Like, do you think there's
Yes.
too many? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
So there's
definitely.
not enough
Well,
houses
to
for it?
put it in perspective, right, there's over 1,400 real estate agents and there's 152 houses for sale. So think
Right.
about that, right? Like it's just the math doesn't add up, right? There's not enough inventory. Now there was enough inventory in 2020 for 1,400 agents, and that's probably why a bunch of people got their license. But the pie is smaller now. We have
Yeah.
less to sell, and not that I have no doubts in my mind, but I'm less worried for myself being 9 years into this business than I am for somebody who got their license a year and a half ago, right? Because it's going to be a whole other can of worms. I went through a recession. I went through the hard times of selling real estate where listings were taking 6 months to sell. I experienced that. I know how to adapt and work past that, but not a lot of agents that came up in late 2019, 2020, 2021. I hate to say it, but they had it easy. They didn't have to go and grow business. Their phone was just ringing because
Yeah.
there were so many people out there buying houses and there were houses to sell them. Now there's still a ton of people buying houses. Your phone's still going to ring, but good luck getting them something because you're going to be one of 44 offers on that house, and you better hope that your offer's competitive.
You pointed out that, in your growth that you want to create more of a recurring income, and by helping and coaching and mentoring people, it just, I thought of the question, in the industry, do you find that, like, those agents, for example, a few years ago, who their phone was ringing and they were selling, houses like hotcakes and making a ton of money, are they spending it all, or are they saving it, and are they in trouble now because they've done that? Like, what is the real estate world? Is it like flashy, we all spend our money and we go Jan 1, we start fresh and we got to do it again?
Yeah.
Or are there some people who are a bit more prudent and keeping an eye on their
Uh,
finances, etc.?
yeah. So again, I think it kind of goes back to like a personality thing. And because real estate is such a mixed bag, I think you get a little bit of everything. I think you get a little bit of the people that are penny pinchers, that they're stressed out because they had to do a $5,000 price reduction to replace a roof because that $5,000 means $75 less in their pocket. And I'm thinking to myself, what? Like, we're talking about a $6,000 paycheck. What do you care about $75? But there are people like that. And then there are also people that spend every dime that comes in and it's gone by the end of the month. And they don't budget for taxes. They don't spend any money on their business. And come tax time, they're in big trouble. And I can relate because I was young. I made a lot of mistakes with my money. And you do not want the tax man coming after you. I'll tell you that, right? Now, luckily, I was in a position where I kind of grabbed the reins before it got out of hand, and I never really lived a flashy lifestyle. Like, I live well within my means. I could afford to drive a nicer car. I could afford a nicer house. I could afford to wear more expensive clothing, and I can afford to eat fine dining all the time if I wanted to. But that's just not who I am, and I got no interest in that. So for me, budgeting is not really an issue. But there are a lot of people that spend, and they feel like just because they had a year where they made $100,000, they have to drive a luxury car now. They need a BMW. They need a Mercedes because that's who they are now. When really it's 1 year of good income, right? And you have no idea what's coming next year. So yes, it does happen where people get ahead of themselves, and then the next year they don't perform at the same rate as they did the year before, and then next thing you know, they're cutting expenses, and it is so hard to take a step back in life, right? Like when you go from driving a luxury car to having to drive, a baseline Honda Civic. And I'm not knocking on Honda Civics because they're great cars and they're normally good financial moves.
It
But
smashes the ego a little
it
bit,
does.
right?
And anyone who says that they're not bothered by it's lying to you. If you're that invested that you needed a BMW or a Mercedes to begin with, then it meant something to you. And going back is going to hurt you, no matter how much you deny it or not. So It is tough. It's going to be tough for people that got used to a good salary, had a lot of money coming in this year, and now they're going to have to budget for a rainy day.
You got it.
Yeah.
For those who are listening and familiar with you at this point, if they've listened the whole way through or not so familiar, do you have a specific target market? Are there areas of the city where you like to play? Are there certain people you like to deal with? Who's the ideal person to give Will a call and have you help them
Yeah.
sell
So
their home?
yeah, I appreciate the question. So I don't necessarily have a specific person, but if you're somebody who puts a premium on getting good advice and information that's relevant and informed, then I'm your guy. I'm not saying that I know the most about real estate in Halifax. I'm sure there are agents there out there that know more than I do. But I take a lot of pride in the knowledge that I have. I'm watching the market and I'm a very analytical person every day. And I pride myself on the advice that I give to my client. If you're somebody who just wants somebody to kind of open the door and buy them a really nice closing gift that looks good on Instagram, it might not be me. I might get you a gift, but I'm just saying it's not for Instagram. So yeah,
We see a
you
lot
got
of
to be
that for
somebody.
sure.
You got to be somebody who cares about the purchase and wants to make sure that it's either a good investment or good for your life. Because if it's not, I'll tell you.
What
I don't
separates
care if you
a
don't
good
buy it.
agent from here's what is bad advice that you see given in your industry to
The most
buyers
common,
and
so
sellers?
real estate agents more often than not are what I call yes men. So they take your instruction. How much do you want to write? What price do you want to write on this house? Okay, 410,000 on 375,000 ask. Okay, they write it. They submit it. Guess what? Rejected. I'm going to tell you, okay, I will write that if you want, but just so you know, I think we have less than a 10% chance of it being accepted. Right? If you disagree and you still want to proceed, I got no problem writing that offer, but I'm going to tell you if I think that you're not going to get it accepted. So I'm going to give you harsh truth. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I'm going to tell you honestly what I think, and you don't have to agree with it. You don't have to follow everything that I say, but you should at least listen. Take it with a grain of salt. But if you're somebody who's just gonna operate on your own, or if you're gonna get a realtor who's just gonna obey your instruction, you're probably not gonna have a whole lot of success in this market.
Awesome. Well, that we really appreciate you having you here,
Yeah, thanks
Will.
for having me.
And I know we're kind of running out of time here, so I just kind of want to wrap it up. But like I said,
Sure.
thank you so much for stopping in, and I hope that anyone that's watching this in Nova Scotia calls Will to
Thank you.
help
I
them with
appreciate it.
their next purchase for sure.
Absolutely. Okay.
Well,
Thanks a
thanks
lot, guys. I
everybody.
really, really appreciate it.